Did you know that a simple wheat penny from 1958, a coin that most people would glance over as just another common cent, is actually surrounded by incredible stories of rarity, errors, and history that have propelled its potential value to an astonishing $5 million, making it one of the most fascinating treasures in American numismatic history. And today we are going to explore everything about this coin in deep detail, unraveling why it became so iconic, how errors and variations turn something that was once worth only 1 cent into life-changing money, and why collectors all around the world are obsessed with hunting down such coins. Because when we talk about the 1958 wheat penny, we are not just speaking about a piece of copper, but a piece of American heritage, a symbol of the closing chapter of the wheat reverse design that had been beloved since 1909. A coin tied to the legacy of Abraham Lincoln himself, and an artifact of Denver Mint history where millions were struck, yet only a handful with specific errors or conditions have gone on to astonish the coin market with their incredible prices. So let us dive into the depth of what makes this coin so magical, beginning with its basic history, the fact that the wheat cent design was introduced in 1909 on the centennial of Lincoln's birth, and Victor David Brenner's artistic touch made the coin a staple in American culture. Then fast forward to the late 1950s when the wheat cent was in its final years, before transitioning to the Lincoln Memorial design in 1959, meaning that the 1958 wheat penny was the very last year of issue for wheat cents struck at the Denver Mint, and because of that it carries special significance as a final chapter in the wheat penny era. But what truly pushes it into legendary territory is the existence of rare errors, double-die obverse varieties, striking mistakes, and perfectly preserved mint state examples graded by services like PCGS and NGC that are so flawless and unique that collectors go to war with their wallets to obtain them. And when we talk about the double-die obverse of 1958, it is one of the most famous Lincoln cent errors of all time, with doubling so strong and clear on the inscriptions like Liberty and In God We Trust that it looks like a completely different coin compared to normal issues, with only a tiny number known to exist, making them multi-million-dollar rarities. And although most of those double dies are from Philadelphia, the idea that Denver struck examples, and that Denver wheat pennies from 1958 can also carry rare strike-throughs, misaligned dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and repunched mint marks, adds to the mystery and allure, because collectors scour through countless rolls of wheat pennies hoping to find even a slight minting anomaly that could propel their coin into the ranks of big money treasures. And this is why 1958 wheat cents, while technically common and circulated grades, become astronomically valuable when certain conditions are met. For example, a regular worn example might only be worth a few cents to a couple of dollars, but a pristine gem red example graded MS67RD or higher can fetch thousands. And add a dramatic error on top of that, and suddenly you are staring at a coin valued in the millions. Which brings us back to the figure of $5 million that has become linked to this year in mintmark and collectors' discussions, because when a coin like this combines rarity, error variety, historical significance, and collector demand, its price transcends normal logic and becomes a legend in its own right. And the psychology of collecting plays into this as well, because humans have always been fascinated with rarity, with the idea that something so small and seemingly insignificant can hold the power to change someone's life overnight. And that is exactly what the 1958 wheat penny represents: stories of lucky people who discovered rare double dies or pristine examples in old jars, coin rolls, or inherited collections, and suddenly found themselves in possession of coins that major auction houses like Heritage or Stack's Bowers would fight to list, coins that headline auctions and draw international attention, coins that make headlines in newspapers and create viral trends online where ordinary people start digging through their change jars hoping to find one too. And the 1958 wheat penny has all the makings of such a treasure: the allure of Lincoln's enduring portrait, the wheat reverse design waving goodbye at the end of 1958, the Denver Mint's legacy, the myth and reality of errors and varieties that bring jaw-dropping figures, and the fact that numismatics as a whole thrives on mystery and possibility. And when you trace the journey of this penny, you are also tracing the journey of American coinage. From its wartime copper changes to its design shifts, from mass production to the artistry of minting, from pocket change to priceless rarity, and all of this wrapped up in a tiny 1-cent piece that today could be worth more than most people's homes, more than some businesses, more than many treasures you can imagine. And that is why the 1958 DeWitt penny is not just a coin, it is a dream, a symbol of possibility, a living piece of history that shows us how mistakes and perfection alike can create legends. So if you are watching this and have ever wondered whether it's worth searching through old wheat pennies, the answer is yes, because the chance that you could stumble upon a coin like this, or even something close to it, is the type of possibility that keeps collectors energized and keeps stories alive, and we will continue to see the 1958 DeWitt penny written about, discussed, and revered for generations because its legend only grows with time, and every new auction result, every new discovery, every new roll searched adds to the mystique, so always check your change, always keep an eye out for wheat cents, and never underestimate the power of the smallest coin in your hand because it might just be hiding the biggest value you've ever seen. And with that incredible story of the 1958 DeWitt penny and its face value of $5 million in history, we invite you to dive deeper into coin collecting, stay curious, and keep hunting for treasures. And if you enjoyed this fascinating exploration, make sure you like, subscribe, and join us for more amazing stories about coins worth big money and the history they carry with them. Next, 1951's wheat penny. Did you know that a small brown coin minted more than 70 years ago could secretly be worth millions today, transforming an ordinary pocket change discovery into a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot? Because the 1951's wheat penny from the United States, struck at the San Francisco Mint, has stunned collectors and treasure hunters alike with stories of a staggering $3 million face value in history. And what makes this coin so captivating is not just its age, but the blend of history, rarity, and condition that propels it into legendary status. And as we dive deep into the tale of the 1951's wheat penny, we find ourselves traveling back to the post-World War II era when America was rebuilding its economy, industries were flourishing, and coinage was a vital everyday part of commerce, yet few could have imagined that a penny minted during this period. An ordinary-looking coin weighing just 3.11 grams and composed of 95% copper with a small mix of tin and zinc would eventually capture the imagination of the numismatic community and become associated with multi-million-dollar valuations, and collectors often point out that the wheat reverse design, featuring 2 stalks of wheat encircling the words 1 cent, United States of America, along with the Latin motto E pluribus unum, adds a vintage charm to these coins. While the obverse bears the dignified portrait of Abraham Lincoln, making every wheat penny both a piece of art and history. And what drives the 1951's to mythical proportions are stories of incredibly rare era coins, condition rarities graded at the highest levels like MS-67 and MS-68 red, and whispers of hoards discovered in unusual places. Because while over 136 million were minted at San Francisco, the vast majority circulated heavily and picked up scratches, nicks, and discoloration that make pristine examples nearly impossible to find today. And numismatists explain that once a coin like the 1951's survives in perfect, untouched condition, it becomes a numismatic miracle, a time capsule carrying the aura of a bygone era, and these specimens can cross into astronomical values at auction houses, sometimes climbing into hundreds of thousands or even millions when coupled with an error such as doubled dies, off-center strikes, or clipped planchets, which multiply the rarity factor exponentially. And over the decades, stories spread about 1 or 2 examples of the 1951's being valued not at a modest collector premium but at an astonishing $3 million in the numismatic marketplace, because the convergence of condition rarity, provenance, and collector demand created a perfect storm. And when auction houses hype a coin like this, bidding wars erupt that push values into unthinkable territory, making it clear that even something as humble as a penny can rival the price of luxury cars, mansions, or fine art. And part of the allure is psychological, because people are mesmerized by the idea that the smallest denomination coin in U.S. history, one that most people would toss aside or ignore, could secretly be a treasure chest in disguise. And as collectors recount their experiences searching through old jars, estate sales, or inherited coin collections, the dream of stumbling upon a 1951s in perfect red luster, gleaming as if fresh off the minting press, fuels an entire subculture of treasure hunting. And the broader context of wheat pennies enhances this fever, because every wheat cent from 1909 to 1958 has its own stories of rarity, but the San Francisco issues often carry an extra mystique since the mintages were smaller and the quality sometimes varied, and this adds a sense of exclusivity, as if the West Coast Mint had a habit of producing coins destined for legends, and within coin clubs, forums, and collector gatherings, debates rage about whether the 1951s is truly worth $3 million or whether it is a symbolic valuation tied to a unique specimen. But either way, the story fuels excitement, and countless enthusiasts spend late nights checking coins with magnifying glasses, peering for tiny mint marks, doubled lettering, or luster that sets one apart. And the historical backdrop also matters, because in 1951 the Korean War was underway, Cold War tensions were high, and America was solidifying its place as a world power. So every artifact from that era carries a historical resonance, and the wheat penny of 1951s becomes a tangible reminder of how far the country has come, yet it also carries a sense of mystery, because so many of these coins vanished into circulation, melted down, or lost in drawers, that finding a pristine survivor feels like discovering buried treasure. And numismatic experts emphasize that coin values are not only about metal but about history, storytelling, and human emotion. So when a collector holds a 1951s wheat penny, they hold a slice of history that echoes with the voices of the past, and the fact that it could be worth millions makes it even more thrilling. And beyond the financial aspect, collectors often stress the educational journey, because in learning about coins like the 1951s, people uncover details about minting technology, economic cycles, and cultural shifts, enriching their appreciation for history, and that blend of money, mystery, and meaning is what transforms a small copper disc into a legendary artifact. And this is why videos, articles, and documentaries about rare wheat pennies go viral. Because people love the rags to riches idea hidden inside a coin jar, and as more stories emerge about astonishing sales, the legend of the 1951s grows, inspiring new generations to dig into their change, scour antique shops, and participate in auctions with the hope of striking gold, or rather copper. And while skeptics might question the $3 million valuation, the truth is that markets are driven by passion and rarity, so if enough collectors desire a coin and are willing to pay, its value is limited only by imagination. And that makes the 1951s not just a coin but a cultural phenomenon. And as this story spreads across social media, YouTube, and collector networks, the mystique only intensifies, ensuring that this little penny remains larger than life. So the next time you come across a wheat penny, don't dismiss it, because it could be part of history worth more than you imagine. And as we wrap up this incredible journey through the tale of the 1951s wheat penny and its rumored $3 million face value, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more unbelievable coin stories, and stay tuned because your pocket change just might hold the next legendary treasure. Next, 2003 P5-cent coin. Today's deep dive where we unlock one of the most fascinating mysteries in modern coin collecting history, a story that takes us into the world of minting technology, human error, and the incredible value hidden inside something as simple and ordinary as a 5-cent piece. And today the spotlight is shining on the 2003 P. Jefferson nickel, a coin that most people would overlook without a second thought when receiving it in their change, yet certain examples of this coin have been discovered with unique errors and mistakes that elevate their value into the millions, with some rare pieces commanding an unbelievable $3 million at auction. And this extraordinary worth is not just about the face value or the historical significance of the nickel itself, but rather about the rare blend of circumstances, mistakes, and quirks in the minting process that makes certain versions of the 2003 P5-cent coin some of the most valuable modern errors in American numismatic history. So let's unravel this entire journey together, starting with a simple question. How does a 5-cent coin minted in the early 2000s suddenly become one of the most prized treasures for collectors? And why does it command so much attention and money in a marketplace full of other rare coins? and the answers lie in a combination of minting errors, doubled dies, planchet mistakes, and striking anomalies that transformed a regular nickel into a multi-million-dollar rarity. And to really appreciate this, we need to first understand the backdrop of the 2003 Jefferson nickel, a coin minted at the Philadelphia Mint at a time when billions of nickels were being struck and distributed for circulation. So under normal circumstances, a 2003 P nickel would be worth only its face value or perhaps a little above face if in pristine uncirculated condition. But when mistakes occur in the minting process, the ordinary becomes extraordinary, because each coin undergoes a precise process of design transfer from master hub to working dies to planchets, and if something goes wrong anywhere along this path, it can create unique anomalies. And in numismatics, these anomalies are what drive collectors wild, with rarity, uniqueness, and historical context combining to create staggering values. So when we look at the 2003 P nickel, we see reports of double die obverse errors, where the portrait of Thomas Jefferson or the lettering around the rim appears doubled, a kind of ghostly overlapping effect that is immediately visible under magnification and sometimes even with the naked eye. And in certain examples, this doubling is dramatic enough to make the coin easily identifiable and highly desirable. Then we also encounter strike-through errors where foreign objects such as grease, dust, or other debris accidentally came between the die and the planchet during striking, leaving indents, weak spots, or mysterious textures on the coin's surface, making each of these coins a one-of-a-kind piece of history. And collectors absolutely adore one-of-a-kind pieces because they know there are no other exact replicas. And then we have the off-center strike errors, a situation where the planchet was improperly positioned when struck, so the design is shifted, sometimes by as much as 10%, 20%, or even more, with parts of the coin's design missing entirely. And depending on the degree of misalignment, these coins can fetch extraordinary sums, because the more dramatic the error, the rarer and more valuable the coin becomes. And in the case of the 2003 P nickel, the most stunning error that catapulted it into the multi-million-dollar range is believed to be a rare combination of misstrike and die clash anomalies, where the dies themselves clashed together without a planchet in between, leaving ghost-like impressions on the surface of the coin. And when that clash die was later used to strike regular planchets, it created a distorted but fascinating coin where Jefferson's image seemed to merge with elements of Monticello, or letters appeared in places they were never meant to be, making it a spectacular mint error that cannot be replicated and therefore driving its price sky high at auctions. Now, what makes the story even more thrilling is the sheer improbability of such a coin surviving. Because typically when mint workers identify major striking errors, they remove those coins from production and destroy them, yet somehow a handful of these error nickels slipped through quality control at the Philadelphia Mint in 2003 and found their way into circulation, meaning that at one point someone may have unknowingly spent a nickel worth millions on a soda, a pack of gum, or a bus fare. And stories like that feed into the incredible mythology surrounding rare coins, where the ordinary pocket change can transform into a fortune if recognized by someone with a keen eye. And this possibility drives treasure hunters, collectors, and numismatic enthusiasts to comb through their change with excitement every day. Now let's break down some of the possibilities that contribute to a 2003 P nickel being worth $3 million, starting with the doubled die obverse. Because not all doubling is the same. Sometimes the doubling is so minor that it takes an expert and high magnification tools to identify, and in those cases the coin might be valuable but not astronomically so. But in the rare cases where the doubling is bold and dramatic, especially unimportant features like Jefferson's face, the date, or the word liberty, then collectors recognize it as an elite error, and that's when the value skyrockets. And then we also consider the possibility of wrong planchet errors, where a nickel design was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a dime, or even a foreign coin, which would result in a coin with mismatched size, weight, or metal composition. And examples of wrong planchet strikes are some of the most fascinating in numismatics because they demonstrate a breakdown in mint processes that should almost never happen, and when it does, collectors pay dearly to own such anomalies. And then there's the famous die clash which I mentioned earlier, where you might see ghost images of Monticello on Jefferson's cheek or letters faintly impressed in odd places. and such errors are beloved because they tell a visual story of what went wrong at the mint. And then we cannot forget the full step designation on Monticello for Jefferson nickels. Because collectors prize nickels that show sharp, fully struck steps at the base of Monticello on the reverse. And while that alone wouldn't make a 2003 nickel worth millions, combining full steps with dramatic errors creates a coin that sits at the absolute pinnacle of rarity. And then there's the human fascination element. Because a 2003 nickel worth $3 million captures the imagination not only of numismatists, but also of the general public. Because it illustrates the idea that immense value can hide in plain sight, that a coin everyone has seen, touched, and spent could secretly hold a life-changing fortune if only we recognize the mistakes embedded in it. And when these rare coins hit the auction block, they create frenzied bidding wars, with wealthy collectors and institutions eager to outbid each other for the bragging rights of owning such an impossibly rare piece. And each time such a coin changes hands at record-breaking prices, it cements its place in history and inspires others to keep searching, because the dream of finding a multimillion-dollar coin in pocket change never grows old. And in the end, the value of the 2003 5-cent piece that sold for $3 million is a reflection of both the technical marvel of minting and the imperfections of human error, a combination that transformed a small coin into a legendary artifact of modern numismatics. And that's why when you hold a nickel from 2003 in your hand, you should look closely at every detail. Examine the date, check for doubling, inspect Monticello's steps, look for off-center strikes, die clashes, or odd textures, because you never know when one of these coins might turn out to be the rare treasure that could change your life. And this is why coin collecting is not just a hobby but a pursuit of history, art, mystery, and sometimes unbelievable wealth. Because each coin is like a miniature time capsule of the minting process, and the mistakes that slip through create stories that are worth far more than their weight in metal. So the next time you receive a nickel in change, especially a 2003 remember this story and take the time to look carefully, because you might just be holding the next $3 million rarity in your palm. And if you enjoyed this incredible journey into the world of valuable coins and the fascinating story of the 2003 nickel, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing discoveries and hidden treasures that could be waiting right in your pocket. Next, 2012 5-cent coin. Now we deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, where small details can mean extraordinary value. And today we're going to explore one of the most surprising treasures in American numismatic history. The 2012 5-cent Jefferson nickel that has been valued at an incredible $4.2 million because of the astonishing errors and mistakes that occurred during its minting, making it not just a simple nickel but a legendary piece of history that collectors and investors alike dream about owning. And as we unravel this story together, you'll discover how a coin that was intended for everyday transactions turned into a multimillion-dollar rarity due to a unique combination of minting errors, historical significance, and collector frenzy. So sit back and get ready, because this story is going to keep you hooked from start to finish. Now to begin. The 2012 Jefferson nickel was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, one of the most prominent and high-capacity mints in the United States, producing billions of coins each year, which makes it seem almost impossible that such glaring mistakes could slip through the cracks. Yet history shows us time and again that even the most advanced minting processes can sometimes produce anomalies that escape detection, and these anomalies are what create legends in the coin collecting world, with the 2012 5-cent standing at the forefront. One of the most striking errors reported on this coin involves dramatic double die adverse variations, where Jefferson's profile and inscriptions appear to be doubled, giving the coin an unusual and ghostly look that immediately signals to experts that something went terribly wrong during the die creation process. Doubled dies are among the most prized errors in numismatics because they are rare and often visually striking. And the 2012 double die nickel shows extreme doubling in areas such as Jefferson's eye, the motto, "In God We Trust," and the word, "Liberty," creating a layered effect that collectors find mesmerizing. And because not many examples have surfaced, this rarity alone catapulted its desirability. But that's not the only issue that makes this coin so valuable. Another category of mistake tied to this coin is off-center strikes, where the design of the coin is not perfectly aligned with the planchet, leaving part of the coin blank and the design shifted toward one edge. And in extreme cases, more than 50% of the coin's design is missing, making it an obvious mint blunder, but one that collectors pay top dollar to own because each example is one of a kind. And in the case of the 2012 P nickel, reports suggest that off-center strikes combined with double die features exist, which is an incredibly rare overlap of two significant error types, and this rarity compounds its value into the multi-million-dollar range, but it doesn't stop there. Because some examples of this nickel are known to have full step details missing or partially struck, with the Monticello building on the reverse either weakly struck or showing unusual die cracks running across it. Die cracks are lines that appear on the surface when a minting die begins to wear and split, and collectors adore them because they show the literal breakdown of minting equipment, turning each coin into a frozen moment of industrial history. And when combined with other anomalies such as die chips where small pieces of metal fill in parts of the design, you get a coin that is visually distinctive and completely different from standard strikes. Now imagine holding in your hand a nickel that not only has doubled inscriptions and an off-center profile but also sports cracks and chips that make it a true one-of-a-kind error masterpiece. That's the type of combination that makes this coin worth millions, and beyond the physical mistakes. The timing of its issue also plays a huge role in its legendary status, because the 2012 P nickel came at a period when coin collecting was experiencing a renewed boom due to the internet and online marketplaces like eBay bringing collectors together in unprecedented numbers, driving bidding wars on rare finds and pushing prices into the stratosphere. So when the first confirmed multi-million-dollar sale of a 2012 P-era nickel hit headlines, it set the tone for future sales, establishing this coin as one of the modern crown jewels of American-era coinage, and collectors began scouring their change and bank rolls for even the faintest signs of these mistakes, turning this nickel into a modern treasure hunt. Another fascinating element is how few of these have been authenticated by major grading services like PCGS and NGC, and the fact that only a tiny handful have been certified at high grades with major errors means demand massively outstrips supply. And in the collecting world, that scarcity is the golden ingredient that makes values explode, and let's not forget the possibility of undiscovered variations, because while some coins show doubling, others might display rotated dies where the obverse and reverse are misaligned, or partial collars that leave a dramatic rim distortion, and such examples would push values even higher, with each newly discovered error making headlines and adding to the mystique of the 2012 P nickel. Now, when we talk about why this coin is worth $4.2 million, we must also look at the psychology of collectors, because numismatics is not just about owning a piece of metal, it's about holding history, rarity, and uniqueness in the palm of your hand, and when wealthy collectors compete for that privilege, the sky is the limit for auction prices, so a nickel that cost 5 cents to produce and was meant for circulation can suddenly become an artifact of rarity that rivals the value of luxury cars, houses, or even small yachts. And this transformation is part of what makes coin collecting so endlessly fascinating. Now, if we zoom in even further, we see that part of the coin's mystique comes from its connection to Jefferson himself, whose face has been on the nickel since 1938, and whose Monticello estate graces the reverse. And over the decades, the nickel has been a staple of American pocket change, so when an era nickel like the 2012 P emerges, it's not just a mistake but a historical anomaly tied to one of America's founding fathers, deepening its cultural importance, and many collectors believe that the story behind the coin is just as valuable as the coin itself, and the story of the 2012 P nickel is one of improbable survival, because with today's quality control, most era coins are caught and destroyed before leaving the mint, yet somehow this coin slipped through and entered circulation, only to later be discovered by sharp-eyed collectors who realized they were holding a fortune, and that miraculous survival adds to its legendary aura. Imagine being the person who found such a coin in their change, at first glance just another nickel, until a closer look reveals doubling, cracks, misalignments, and then the dawning realization that you are holding one of the rarest nickels in modern history, and that feeling of discovery fuels the ongoing hunt for others, sparking enthusiasm in the hobby, and pushing even beginners to dream of striking it rich with pocket change, and that is the beauty of numismatics. The idea that treasure can still be found in everyday coins, and with the 2012 nickel valued at $4.20 million, it stands as a reminder that extraordinary mistakes can lead to extraordinary wealth. So as we bring this incredible story to a close, remember that what makes this coin so valuable is not just the metal or the design, but the once-in-a-lifetime combination of doubling, off-center strikes, die cracks, weak steps, possible rotated dies, rarity of high-grade examples, and above all the sheer unpredictability of minting errors, which together created a coin that defies logic and skyrocketed in value. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of rare and valuable error coins, because the story of the 2012 Jefferson nickel proves that even in modern times, legendary treasures are still being discovered, and who knows, maybe the next multimillion-dollar find is sitting in your pocket right now. So keep looking closely at your change, stay curious. And if you enjoyed this story and want more amazing content about rare coins and hidden treasures of history, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a chance to learn about the next coin that could be worth a fortune. Today, as we take you on another incredible journey through the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and numismatic mysteries that continue to shock collectors and investors alike. And this time our focus is on a coin that most people have seen countless times without ever suspecting it could hold life-changing value, the 1999 Jefferson nickel. A 5-cent coin that under ordinary circumstances would never be worth more than its face value or perhaps a small premium in pristine condition. Yet certain examples of this very coin have been discovered with extraordinary minting errors and striking anomalies that transform them from everyday pocket change into multimillion-dollar rarities, with some reports placing their value as high as $1.5 million. And the reason why this specific coin has become the stuff of legend lies in the fascinating interplay of minting technology, human error, and the unpredictability of mass production at the U.S. Mint, because when billions of coins are struck each year, even the most advanced machinery and quality control cannot completely eliminate mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes are so rare and so visually striking that they become the holy grail for collectors. So today we are going to explore in detail how a 1999 nickel, minted at the Philadelphia Mint, could end up being worth such staggering amounts. What kinds of errors and anomalies make it so valuable? What possibilities exist for why these mistakes happened in the first place, and why collectors are willing to pay astronomical prices to add them to their collections? And to begin, we should first set the scene of what the 1999 nickel represents historically, because it was one of the last years before the massive design changes that began in 2004 with the Westward Journey nickel series. So in 1999 the Jefferson nickel still bore Felix Schlag's long-running design with Thomas Jefferson's left-facing portrait on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse, a design that had been in place since 1938, and this continuity made the Jefferson nickel one of the most familiar coins in circulation. But what most people never realized is that within that familiar design lay the potential for hidden rarities caused by unusual errors. So let's dive into the kinds of mistakes that can turn an ordinary 1999 nickel into a multimillion-dollar treasure, starting with the double die errors, because double dies occur during the hubbing process. When the die receives multiple impressions of the design that are slightly misaligned, and when such a die strikes planchets, it produces coins with doubled features such as letters, numbers, or even parts of Jefferson's portrait. And in the 1999 nickel, some examples have been found with dramatic doubling on the word liberty, or the motto "I in God we trust," where the doubling is visible to the naked eye and immediately sets the coin apart as a rarity, and collectors prize dramatic doubling above all else because it is undeniable, bold, and historically significant. And then we must consider off-center strike errors, where the planchet was misaligned when struck and so the design appears shifted, leaving portions of the coin blank, and depending on the degree of the off-center strike, such coins can range from modestly collectible to unbelievably rare, especially when enough of the design is still visible to identify the date and mint mark, and in the case of the 1999 nickel, certain Off-center errors have surfaced that show as much as 40% of the coin missing the design, making them spectacular showpieces worth huge sums. And then there are die clash errors, which occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, creating ghostly impressions of each design on the opposite die, so when coins are later struck with those dies, faint outlines of Monticello can appear on Jefferson's cheek, or letters can appear where they were never meant to be, and these are not only visually fascinating but also provide a direct glimpse into what happened during the striking process. And then we move on to strike-through errors, which are some of the most varied and intriguing of all, because they happen when some foreign object like grease, cloth fibers, metal shavings, or even dust comes between the die and the planchet, leaving unusual impressions, blank patches, or strange textures on the coin's surface, and no two strike-through errors are ever exactly alike, which makes each example unique and highly collectible. And in the case of the 1999 P nickel, there are stories of strike-throughs that left Jefferson's face partially blanked out or Monticello appearing ghostly and incomplete, which drives collectors wild because such coins are literally one of a kind. And then we must not forget multiple strike errors where a coin is struck more than once either by accident or because the planchet failed to eject properly, creating overlapping images that look surreal. And examples of multiple struck 1999 nickels exist where Jefferson's face seems doubled or Monticello's steps appear layered, and these are incredible to look at and extremely rare to own. And then we come to wrong planchet errors, where the design of the nickel was struck on a planchet meant for another denomination, such as a dime or quarter. And these errors are some of the most valuable of all because they create an immediate mismatch that is unmistakable. And since 1999 was a year of heavy coin production across multiple denominations at the Philadelphia Mint, it is entirely possible that a few nickel dies struck the wrong planchets. And these wrong planchet strikes have become some of the most sought-after rarities in the Jefferson nickel series. And one of the reasons why some 1999 P nickels have been appraised at up to $1.5 million is precisely because they combine multiple unusual errors, such as being off-center while also struck on a wrong planchet and displaying doubling or die clashes. And when all of these rare anomalies occur together, the result is a coin that is not only historically important but essentially irreplaceable. And the law of supply and demand dictates that when something is both unique and highly desired, its value can climb into the stratosphere. And that's exactly what has happened with these rare 1999 nickels. And now let's explore the human and technical factors that may have led to these mistakes, because while the U.S. Mint employs sophisticated machinery, even the best systems are vulnerable to wear, misalignment, or contamination, and in 1999 the Philadelphia Mint was striking millions of nickels daily, which increased the chances that some dies became misaligned, some planchets were improperly fed, or some quality control inspections failed to catch the errors. And when billions of coins are struck, even 1 in a million mistakes will occur hundreds of times, yet the vast majority are destroyed before they leave the mint, so the fact that a few slipped into circulation makes them miraculous survivors, and collectors cherish them not only for their rarity but also for the story they tell about imperfection within perfection. And there is also the factor of full step designations on Monticello, because Jefferson nickels that show fully struck steps are always more desirable. And when a coin displays both full steps and a dramatic error, it becomes exponentially more valuable. And in the 1999 P nickel series there are reports of coins showing complete steps despite dramatic errors like off-center strikes or strike-throughs. And these combinations create coins that truly cannot be replicated, and that uniqueness fuels the million-dollar valuations. And it is also important to recognize the psychological appeal of these coins, because collectors love the idea that unimaginable value can hide in the most ordinary objects, that the change in your pocket could secretly hold a fortune. And this narrative makes stories like the 1999 P nickel so compelling and viral, because they tap into a universal dream of finding hidden treasure. And in fact there have been real cases where ordinary people unknowingly spent or received error nickels only to later discover their extraordinary worth. And such stories only fuel the frenzy among collectors and treasure hunters, pushing demand higher and higher. And when a coin finally hits the auction block, wealthy collectors battle fiercely to secure it, driving prices into the millions, Because beyond the technical rarity there is also prestige, the bragging rights of owning something so unique that no one else in the world has it, and that kind of ownership is worth millions to those who can afford it. So when we look at the 1999 P. Jefferson nickel valued at $1.5 million, we are not just looking at a small piece of metal. We are looking at a symbol of rarity, chance, and human fascination with mistakes turned into treasures. And that is why coin collecting is not simply about money but about history, art, human error, and discovery. And when you think about it, the fact that one tiny misalignment at the Philadelphia Mint in 1999 could produce a coin worth more than most houses is truly astounding.